Right. Morning, everyone. Today we are going to cover topic 12.2 animal nutrition, and this is part 2. So before we start our lesson, we'll do a recap session as always. So remember that last time we did a learning objective, which was 12.2.3, which is to describe the dietary importance of protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and mineral salts. We also looked at water and fiber, aka roughage. And one of the importance for that is actually if we don't have enough of these nutrients, we're actually going to have this thing called a deficiency disease. So what are some of the deficiency diseases that we're going to get? So for carbohydrates, we talked about ketosis, which is the breakdown of protein, and also fatigue. That means that you're going to get pretty tired, like for quite a long time. Fat, you can get dermatitis, but the deficiency for fat is pretty rare. Protein, you get kwashiorkor. For vitamins A to D, you can get night blindness, which means that you're going to have poor night vision. And for vitamin B, that is beriberi, which is actually the loss of function of muscles. Vitamin C, the deficiency disease is called scurvy, and you get bleeding gums and teeth, and also wounds would heal very slowly. And for vitamin D, you get rickets in children and osteoporosis in adults. For minerals, calcium, you get rickets in children and also stunted growth in children. And for iron, the deficiency disease is anemia. As for fiber, that's constipation, and water, you get dehydration. So now we're going to have a new learning objective, which is to identify the main structures of the alimentary canal. The mouth, esophagus, mouth, small intestine, large intestine, rectum and anus, and also all the associated organs like salivary glands, liver, gallbladder, and the pancreas. So for this learning objective, what you need to do is that you need to be able to basically label those main structures and to be able to kind of spell all of the parts correctly. So the step to success is to label parts of the digestive system. Second, to know their location, like where does it go? Is it at the top, at the bottom, in the middle? Which one goes first? And the third one is how to spell the names of those organs correctly. Now we're going to look at the parts of the human alimentary canal. So these are the starters that I asked your friends the other day. So we did this actually last week. And I asked them, can you share with the class what food you had for dinner last night? What do you think happened to that food and where is it right now? So the food that you have eaten from last night, if you just think about it, where did it actually go and how does it look like right now? So the things that we did when we're eating and while we are eating, there's actually 5 basic stages to this, and this is called the stages of human nutrition. And stages of human nutrition, the first stage is called ingestion, and the second one is digestion. Third one is absorption, and the fourth one is assimilation, and the last one is egestion. So ingestion, if you look at the first 2 letters, it's actually going in. So this means taking food into the digestive system. And this is also called eating. After you take food into the digestive system, the second thing that's going to happen is digestion, which is breaking down of the food. So you're going to get mechanical digestion and also chemical digestion. As for absorption, this means that you're going to take that food, so the small parts of the food, and you're going to put it into the bloodstream. This is so that you can transport that food and the nutrients to all parts of your body that needs it the most. Number 4 is assimilation, which is to use the absorbed food in metabolic processes. For example, insulin, this is a hormone and it can actually change glucose, so small glucose molecules, into glycogen, which is to be stored inside your muscles and also in the liver. And the last part is egestion. So if you look at the first letter here, it says the letter E, and E here refers to exit. So food will actually pass out of the alimentary canal food that cannot be digested, and these are the food that cannot be absorbed into the body either. So we watched the video the other day, but I'm not gonna play that video in this video, but you can check it at youtube.com/watch. So if you just log on to this, you can actually watch the video that we saw. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to take out that worksheet where you need to label the parts of the digestive system. So if you have it right now, please take it out and pause this video for like 5 minutes, and I want you to label it. So after 5 minutes, come back to this video and I'll show you the answers. So number 1 there, that is the mouth. Number 2 is the salivary glands. 3, that is called the esophagus. So food's going to travel down the esophagus and then into this part right here, which is your stomach, and it's actually attached, it's not attached, but right behind the stomach you have the liver and the gallbladder, and then you have the duodenum right here. So this is actually part of the small intestine. So the small intestine is this whole this U-shaped tube here, and then it goes down here. That whole thing is called the small intestine, but it's divided into 2 parts. So the first part is called the duodenum. That's like the first part of the small intestine. And then this part here is called the ileum. So on that duodenum, it's actually attached to the gallbladder and the pancreas as well. And then you have the large intestine, which is the colon. And after your food passes through here, it's going to end up here in the rectum, and that is where your undigested food will be stored. And then after that, there is this tube right here that's going to remove the food, and that's called the anus. So food will exit. So that's egestion. So ingestion, when food comes in, this is in the mouth, and then digestion is pretty much the whole part here. Absorption is here, including the colon as well. And then egestion is in the anus. Okay, so if you've labeled all parts of the digestive system correctly, and that means you know the location and how to spell them, you have successfully covered that learning objective. Now we're going to move on to the main functions of the mouth, the stomach, the small intestine, and the large intestine in relation to digestion in the alimentary canal. So what do we need to do here? We need to know what each of the organs do. So all these 4 organs, and we need to know what are the digestive processes that occur there actually. Alright, so we need to think about what factors do you think would enable food to be absorbed into the body? So if you remember, what type of food do we absorb in the body to be taken into? We have C for carbohydrates, and examples of carbohydrate is glucose, a simple carb, and you have a complex carb, which is starch. And then you have fat, and that's how fat molecules actually look like. And then you have protein, and that's what protein looks like. And V for vitamins. And then you have, what's that? F, fiber, mineral, and water. So all these molecules are actually very, very small. Imagine that one circle right there is 1 atom. So what factors enable the food to be absorbed? Here are the clues for it. So we have pushing right here, trying to use a magnifying glass. So what does that mean? The food is really small. It has to be really, really small. And surrounding your body tissues are actually tissue fluid, and this is mainly made up of water. So to get your food to your body cells, you need that food to be able to be absorbed. And not just absorbed, but actually it needs to dissolve in water. So the 2 factors that enable our body to absorb or taking food to reach our cell is firstly the size. It needs to be super small. And the second one is solubility. That means that it can dissolve in water so that it can move around, so that glucose can move into the tissue fluid and then finally into your tissues so that they can use it for cellular respiration to get energy. Alright, so what is digestion? It helps us to achieve all of those so that the food becomes soluble and so that the food becomes small. Digestion is a process whereby complex, large, and insoluble food is broken down into smaller and soluble forms so that our body can absorb them. So if you have a look at that link right there, so let me just get it out right here. You can actually see how small your cells are and like how or why you actually need to break down your food. So this is a website called learn.genetics.utah.edu, and it kind of shows us a cell size and a scale. So I'm gonna let that load for a while, and let's just see if it loads up really quickly or not. Okay, I'm just gonna let that load, and then we're just gonna go through the slides first. Okay, so digestion, remember, is the process whereby complex, large, and insoluble food will be broken down into smaller soluble forms so you can absorb them into the body. So there are two types of digestion we're talking about here. You have mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion means that it involves physical movement to make the food smaller. So this is chopping, grinding, and churning. Chopping and grinding are the jobs that your teeth actually does, and churning is a physical movement that the stomach actually does. So what churning is that it will mix up the liquid to make it move like very vigorously, and at the same time it kind of like mushes the food, breaks it down into smaller pieces. But chemical digestion, you kind of use something here that's very special. You use enzymes to break down the food chemically. So what we mean by chemically is that we're breaking the bonds in between that food molecule actually. And chemically breaking the bonds, that's why we call it chemical digestion, and only enzymes can do that for you. Oops. Okay, so here you go. We have, that's a Times Regular 12 font, and then you have a coffee bean here. The grain of rice, that is just one grain of rice. Imagine you're eating a whole nasi lemak, right? That's like more than one grain of rice. And this one needs to get into your cell. So let's move in there. That's an amoeba, and that is your cell. It needs to get in here, and look at how big that grain of rice is to enter your cell. And so what the enzymes do is that it's going to break it down. It's going to break it down into something super small. So here you go, glucose. So that grain of rice contains starch, and that starch will be broken down into glucose. And see how small water molecule is? So water molecule can enter your cells pretty easily, and glucose as well. So let's move out. And that right there, these are these are your viruses. And look at how small they are compared to your cell right there. All right. Okay, so what are the major groups of enzymes you need to know? So digestive enzymes is divided into three. You have carbohydrates, protease group, and lipase group. Carbohydrates acts on carbohydrates, and it breaks down starch into glucose. Protease acts on protein and breaks down protein molecules into smaller amino acids. And then you have lipase, which acts on fat, and it breaks down fat molecules into glycerol. So this one right here is glycerol, and then the others are fatty acids. So what is the function of the mouth? So the mouth is involved in the ingestion and also digestion. The mouth is an opening where food is ingested into the buccal cavity. And mechanical digestion occurs here because you have the teeth, and also chemical digestion occurs here as well. So in the mouth, you have teeth, which cuts, grinds, and crushes food into smaller pieces. And you also have the salivary glands. And salivary glands contain saliva, and it secretes it. It releases saliva. And saliva also contains carbohydrates, which is the enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates. So carbohydrate digestion starts in the mouth. And then you have your tongue. that helps to roll the food into balls, and this is what you call a bolus. So once it actually rolls the food into a bolus, it's going to move down the esophagus. And then down the esophagus, at the end of it, is the stomach. The stomach is a muscular bag, and it churns the food for about 4 hours. So remember, churning means to mix vigorously. The stomach also secretes, when there's food, it secretes this gastric juice. And gastric juice contains quite a lot of stuff in there. So you have enzymes, you have protease. Only protease is found in the stomach. So only protein digestion occurs in the stomach. So you also have hydrochloric acid, which helps to break down protein, and also it helps to kill potentially harmful bacteria. So what happens is that the bolus of food, it's very solid. Now it turns into like semi-liquid, which is called chyme. And then once that chyme is already fully digested, like the protein is fully digested, kind of digested fully there, and once it's ready, it will then be released by the sphincter muscle, and it's gonna go down the small intestine. So at first it goes down this part right here, which is the duodenum. It's gonna be broken down here as well with digestion, but we're gonna focus on ileum first, which is for absorption. Ileum is the last part of the small intestine where most absorption of digested food occurs. And what happens after absorption is that the food goes into the bloodstream. And the small intestine, the ileum absorbs digested food like glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, and glycerol. It absorbs vitamins and water as well. And for the large intestine, the colon, what happens is that once the food passes through the colon would absorb mineral salts and water. So after all the excess water and minerals have been absorbed, what happens is that you're going to be left with undigested food. So this means the food that you cannot digest anymore, and it will become your feces. So feces. So what I want you to do now is I want you to use your textbook to help you to answer this worksheet. So please look for this worksheet now. And okay, since you can't raise your hand, what you can do is that you can go back through these slides and text me if you need any help. So after doing that worksheet, you will know what each organs do and what the digestive processes are. I'll give you guys the corrections next week, so I hope you guys have a good day. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!